Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today I'm proud to be with Brian J. Walker of Brian's Drive-In Theater, and we're going to learn about comedy, horror, old and new. Greetings, Brian. How are you?
I'm well tonight, Hercules. How are you doing?
Looking forward to learning about horror comedy. I enjoy some horror comedy, especially around the holidays. Athena and I have quite a collection of horror comedy Christmas films. Uh,
There is a long list these days of horror comedy Christmas films. Santa's Sleigh is, ooh, God,
yes,
that may be my favorite. Well, Christmas Evil, I would also have to. Santa's Sleigh is comedy horror, and Christmas Evil is more horror comedy, I think. And the distinction between the two is this: horror comedy has more elements of horror and has more genuine scares than comedy horror, which emphasizes the comedic element of the script and in the film. And the more the horror elements are of secondary nature. Um, and I've been seeing a lot of horror comedies lately. I've seen Hard Eyes, which I would put in the horror comedy realm. And I liked Hard Eyes a lot. But 2 nights ago, we saw Hell of a Summer at the theater. And it was made in Canada close to 3 years ago. It was shot close to Toronto, not quite in Toronto. And it's sort of a parody of Friday the 13th, in that they're all at a summer camp. The counselors are getting set up and getting ready for the kids to come, and one by one they're being knocked off. But it has some genuine laugh out loud funny moments in it, although it has some pretty excruciating dismemberments and such too. But I really liked it. If you look it up on IMDb or anywhere else for that matter, you'll see that Hell of a Summer has a 2023 release date, but that's when it appeared at the Toronto International Film Festival. And it took them a while to find a distributor, and which, from what I understand from independent filmmakers, that is like the biggest roadblock. You can make a film on the cheap, but trying to get somebody to pick it up is another matter entirely. And I have to say, if you're a Friday the 13th fan and are into horror comedy parodies, take a look at Hell of a Summer. I really enjoyed it. There's nobody in it whose name I know. They're all Canadian actors, from what I can tell, for the most part. But it's really well done, and it's very earnest, and the script is nice and tight. Whoever wrote it did a good job with it, quite honestly. And the main character's name is Jason, so I perfect, right?
course.
And I won't add any spoilers to Hell of the Summer, other than to just say, um, if you're looking for a decent horror film that's still playing in the theaters right now, and there's some good ones coming up here late this month and early next month, at least judging from the previews that I keep seeing at the theater when we go. Um, Take a look at Hell of a Summer. I really enjoyed it, and if you don't go to the theater to see it, I'm sure it'll be on one of the streaming services very soon. The one thing that really surprises me about new releases is how quickly you can watch them at home.
Yes.
I wish they had a little longer of a life at theaters. When we were kids, a movie didn't hit television until at the quickest 2 years.
Mhm.
And sometimes movies would stay in release forever. A case in point, now this is a blockbuster, it's not a B movie, but E.T., when it came out in 1982, I went to see it. I can't remember who I went to see it with, but I was a teenager. I was probably 16, 17, something like that. And when I went to see E.T., I didn't care for the movie in particular. I thought it was kind of schmaltzy, and I know that's a beloved film for so many people, but schmaltz, I just can't do it. It's just a little too saccharine sweet for me.
Mhm.
And all the in your face product placement, I think, is disgusting, and it hit me even as a teenager back then. It's like, I don't care about your damn Reese's Pieces. Um, but a year later, I went to see it again, and it was at this playing at the same theater in my hometown.
Wow.
It just hadn't stopped. I can't imagine. They must have gotten new prints at some point because they were running this thing like 4 or 5 times a day. And like I said, it was on for a year, a solid year at our theater. It was such a blockbuster. And even with blockbusters these days, and I guess the Minecraft movie is probably our biggest movie that we've had out for a while. Um, it has done pretty well, and it's done very well actually in the theaters from what I can do. Box office wise, I don't know. I don't know what their audience reviews have been on Rotten Tomatoes or anything like that. Um, but it won't play very long. It'll probably be, if you're lucky, it'll be in the theaters 6 weeks, and then it'll hit whatever streaming service, whether that's Netflix or Prime or Paramount, Peacock. You take your pick. Um, that stuff that turns up on streaming services so fast. And I think that's sort of a disservice to some of these movies. I think it cheapens them a little bit. But on the other hand, the producers are trying to wring every last buck out of this thing as quick as they can. And a movie that I missed in the theater, moving on, in back in November, that I really wanted to see was Terrifier 3. I wanted to see the further exploits of Art the Clown. And you've seen Terrifier 1 or the
Yes,
first, or I should just call it Terrifier.
you
Uh,
so that, and you told me that it was a two and a three, and then I found them on Tubi, so I will watch them at some point.
2 is better than 1, and 3 so far for me has been the best of all. And I think it's on. I think we watched it on Prime. I think we had to pay like $5 for it or something like that. It's worth $5. Trust me. I loved. Well, it's gory as all get out. So if that's not your thing, if you don't want to see a lot of body horror, essentially, Terrifier is not for you. Um, but I wanted to see the further exploits of Art the Clown, and this movie has much more of a. Don't get your hopes up, but it has much more of a linear plot than the first two. And the person who portrays Art the Clown, and his name is David Howard Thornton. He makes the movies, quite honestly. He is so good at what he does. He speaks. He says nothing in the films at all, and everything he conveys in terms of communication or emotion is done through mime, essentially. Until he starts killing people, and then that's not mime. um, but he is excellent. His performance in Terrifier 3, I think, was just blew me away. Amazing performance, and he can make you laugh. He can terrify you. He can scare you. He can terrify you. Just within 5 seconds of one another. And if you've seen Terrifier 1 and if you thought it was too gory for you, Terrifier 3 is like it's 3 times as gory. Um, but gore, I mean, I got to admit, there were probably 3 or 4 sequences in Terrifier 3 where I was watching like this, trying to peer between my fingers, because it is that um, mind blowing, I guess is the word I want to use. But there again, every once in a while, something will happen that I laughed out loud. I mean, that funny in it. Terrifier 3, obviously, however, favors the horror over comedy. And that's what I've seen a lot lately. Even Hell of a Summer, which is really a parody of all the slasher flicks in the 1980s. There's some genuine chills in it, and there's some scenes that make you jump. It's well done from that respect, but it is a parody, and it does have a lot of funny lines, And the funny lines will come oftentimes at the moment of horror, when there is something terrifying going on screen. And it had a great impact on me, and I thought that the cast do a great job in it. There again, it's in Hell of a Summer, all those people are unknown to me. And in Terrifier, the only person I can really name is Art, the person who portrays Art the Clown, David Howard Thornton. And I keep having to look at his name to make sure I got it right. Um, but those two have really made my month so far. I enjoyed both of those horror films, and sometimes you get into a rut where you just cannot find a new horror film that speaks to you. And I loved both of these.
Yeah, it
And
sounds like you do. You've been very enthusiastic about these movies for weeks now.
I have, and another one that I saw this back in September. Greg hadn't seen it though until I think we watched it a couple of weeks ago. I finally got him to watch The Substance with Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley, and
Mhm.
that was my second viewing of it. And if have you seen it by any chance?
No, I haven't seen that one yet.
Um, it's it there again. It's body horror, and it. Mm, there's a reason I never wanted to be a doctor or anything medical, because it's got some really gross, well done sequences, but they're gross, as well. But there again, it had an effect on me, and that's what horror films are supposed to do. They're supposed to make you recoil. They're
Right.
supposed to make you want to look away. Um, and The Substance is one that it just keeps on giving for me. The second time I watched it, the first time I watched it, Demi Moore's performance is really strong. And the interesting thing about it is that it gets stronger through the movie. Um, I don't know if she just got more into the character. I mean, she's good at the beginning, but she really gets into the character. And as the character ages, she really comes alive. And her alter ego in Substance is Margaret Qualley. And the first time I watched it, I was just like, Nepo baby. Her mother is Andy McDowell. And the second time I watched it, I thought, gee, I should have paid more attention to her because I thought Margaret Qualley did a very good job in it as well. And it's kind of be easy to get overpowered by Demi Moore's performance because it's terrific, and she's not anybody I ever thought of as being. I mean, she's not a bad actress, but I never thought of her as being an overly strong actress. But this turned my head. And I love the subject matter of The Substance. Every day I look in the mirror and I've got another crack in my face. And people, part of, well, gosh, can I say that without giving? I don't want to like throw spoilers everywhere. But part of the beginning of the movie is focused on how there's nothing wrong with her. She's just getting older. She's still, as strong and vibrant and charismatic, and nobody seems to care because she's getting older. But day by day, she's over 50. And I've got to say, I have felt some of that, here and there in my life, especially after turning 50. There is a kind almost an invisibility to it.
Yeah, yeah, there is, and you find people saying things in movies as you just did that apply very acutely to your situation. We're watching Supernatural. We're binge watching that from the beginning to the end, and we saw an episode that was just pretty much every sentence was about aging.
There's a, I hate to say it, but the thing that I know most about Supernatural is the Chevy.
The what? I'm sorry.
The Chevy.
Oh, the Impala. Yeah.
Yeah, the car, the 67 Impala. And those were really pretty cars. And that's the thing that I know best. And I've got a couple of models that of the 67 Impala sports sedan, which is the car they drive in,
Yes.
which is the car they drive in Supernatural. And I think that those models came from the popularity of the show because usually when you see a 1/18th or a 1/24th scale model, they're the coupe. because the two-door coupes were, at least back in the 60s, generally the more attractive between the coupes and the sedans. And the first time I found one of the 67 Impala Sport Coupe, or Sport Sedan, that is, four doors, I thought, wow, that's a really weird model, to make. And then like 2 weeks later, I saw a preview for Supernatural, and I was like, oh, that's where it comes
That's why.
from. That's why they started making these.
Yes, character in the show, the car.
Mhm. I probably should back up and talk about comedy horror films. Oh, but before I forget, knowing what a fan you are of horror comedy Christmas movies, put Terrifier 3, lump that in as a Christmas movie,
Mhm.
because it qualifies as a Christmas movie. It takes place at Christmas, and they keep Christmas going, throughout the entire film. So that's another good movie for you to watch, with the holiday, coming up in about 7, 8 months from now. I plan on watching it again at that point too. It's a lot of fun. It kind of blew me away.
I
But
haven't
there
seen.
again, it's extremely graphic. So if you are not into that kind of horror, that's probably not your thing.
But I will watch it though. You recommended it once.
Well, I loved it. I really liked it a lot. And I'm not that hard to please when it comes to movies, as long as, like I said a few minutes ago, if it has an effect on me, that means that horror film, in some way, shape, or form, has done something good to me. We saw The Woman in the Yard, and that's not a comedy horror film
No,
or horror comedy, not at all. And I liked it, but unfortunately, the first hour of it, I think, is spectacular. The last 25 minutes really let the movie down. And there's a real dichotomy between the first 2/3 of the movie and then the last third of it. And at the end, it ties things up for the most part for the viewer. But I'm kind of unforgiving about those 25 minutes where I didn't know what the hell was going on, and none of it made any sense, and I started losing interest in it.
Tired.
But
I saw that in the movies and it made perfect sense when I was younger. And then they put it on television. I was wondering how can they possibly show this on television? And the way they cut it, it made the housewife look really crazy, but the movie made no sense at all.
mhm. Yeah, a bad edit job can change the whole texture of a movie.
Yes.
And I would just as soon have movies not be edited. I'd like to see the director's vision. These days, a lot of directors seem to have trouble like excising components that aren't necessary. And I think that that's particularly essential for a horror film. Horror films really shouldn't be longer than 2 hours, as far as I'm concerned, because they start to meander after a while, and it's kind of hard to keep the horror going, past, let's say, 90 minutes or so. Um, and I think that genre really lends itself to something quick. Like 90 minutes, I think is perfect, for a horror film. And a lot of them, if you look at the old ones and some new ones, seem to run between 90 minutes and 2 hours. I think that works pretty well. Um, so yeah, I lost my train of thought there for a second, but yeah, you might want to watch Terrifier 3 around the holidays this year because it's a lot of fun, and I'm sure Athena would like it too. She seems to have a kind of a morbid sense of humor like me.
Does. Do you think that it's going to be a icon like Freddy Krueger and Jason and Elvira?
He certainly could be. He could certainly be the next Freddy Krueger, um, especially since the movies have been so fantastically inexpensive. Um, and to get distribution is, as I was saying a few minutes ago, is so tough. And I think that there's a growing kind of a fandom for Art the Clown. As I recall, there was a at the local spirit store here at Halloween. There was a sort of Art the Clown knockoff. It wasn't branded Art the Clown, but there was a sort of knockoff costume that you could buy um, that kind of lent itself to the Terrifier films, which I thought was kind of neat. But I'm sure copyright violation at the same time.
Well, the licensing, I'm going to look next year in spirit of Halloween and stores like that. They might have the masks out, legitimately licensed products.
That would be nice. And I'm sure that I'm sure there's going to be another Terrifier film, and I'm sure that there's probably going to be some marketing to follow too.
Action figures and Funkos and
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. As that stuff becomes easier to make smaller batches of. Some the comedy horror genre has been around for a long, long time. If you can go back to the silent era and find some comedy horror films. And the ones that I hold near and dear to my heart, especially the ones made in the 1940s and the 1950s, all favor comedy over horror. And one of the ones that I watch very often around Halloween is called The Ghost Breakers. It's a Paramount movie. It came out in 1940 and it stars Bob Hope, Paulette Goddard, Richard Carlson, who's very young in this, years before it came from outer space, and Willie Best among other people in the film. And it's really well done. All of those people were Paramount players, so they were all cast in the movie because they were under contract. But it's an interesting film, and you don't get to see Paulette Goddard much anymore. I'm afraid she's sort of becoming, perhaps a forgotten actress. She never had a huge hit film that sort of established her identity, and she was a good actress and very charismatic on screen. So this movie is kind of fun to see her finally get her due because it's a really well done film, Ghost Breakers. And there again, my cat's attacking me. And there again, that's a fun one to watch around Halloween.
Red,
Um,
a Christmas horror movie. Uh,
no what?
Red One, I think it's called. It's a Christmas.
Oh, yeah, I have not seen that yet.
We enjoyed that. We saw it a couple of times.
What do you know what year that came out?
No, it was recent. It had the guy who played Jonah Jameson in the Spider-Man movies, and The Rock was in it as well.
Oh, that movie. Okay, that was out, I think in December or January. Okay. Oh, I have not seen it yet. But you enjoyed it?
I enjoyed it. I wasn't expecting anything, so it was much better than I anticipated. Made me laugh a few times.
And you know what? I think it's probably beneficial if you walk into a theater and have either no expectations or very low ones. Because you can get pumped up about something and then you go to see it and you're just let down. And that's sometimes not it's not really the fault of the filmmaker or anything. I think sometimes it's just that you get so pumped up about a film and you get so excited about it, and then you see it, and then it's, I wish this would have been better. So I've kind of stopped doing a whole lot of research before I go see a film. After I've chosen it, I might watch the trailer or something like that, but I'm not going to do any more research on it until after I watch it. Just so that I don't get too tired of it, because I want it to be fresh. I want to be surprised when I'm at the theater, and that seems to help me uh, with that. Now that said, I've watched a number of these comedy horror films 1,000 times. Hold That Ghost with Abbott and Costello, and that was their first comedy horror film. It came out in 1941. It has this really fun animated sequence. Um, it's the title sequence, actually, at the beginning. Well, obviously at the beginning of the film, and it's so much fun to watch. Universal wasn't really known for its cartoon department or anything like that, but the little animated title sequence, I think it's fun to watch. And what's even more fun is the cast. Since it's Universal, they've got their contract players in it. And Evelyn Ankers, who was uh, other than Fay Wray, was one of the early scream queens. Fay Wray was 1930s. Evelyn Ankers was 1940s, and she appeared in all of those Universal horror films from the early to mid 40s. And in this, it's comedy, but she handles comedy very well too. Now she can shriek. Um, I think that's one of the reasons that they put her in this horror films is because she's got one hell of a scream. It's fantastic. She can really project it too. Uh, also in also in Hold That Ghost, one of my favorite comedians who there again you don't see reference to very often anymore is in it, and her name was Joan Davis. Joan Davis came up through the ranks of vaudeville in the 1920s and 1930s, as a child, essentially, and could somehow she could take like the most stale of comedy routines and she could inject it with something new and different and make it fresh. She seemed to be very good at that. So even Hold That Ghost is a really well done film. But even in movies where it maybe wasn't scripted as well, Joan Davis, seemed to know how to shine. And I first became familiar with her in a TV series that she did in the early 1950s called I Married Joan. Very much in the vein of I Love Lucy, in that she is married to Jim Backus in this, and I think he's a judge in the TV show. Now that I think about it, and she's a homemaker, and she keeps getting herself involved in all of these calamities. Um, it that TV show did not have the budget of I Love Lucy, and it is not the caliber of I Love Lucy at all. However, she is really fun to watch in it, and she can take some pretty weary routines and make them funny again. And she's a lot of fun to watch. Sadly, Joan Davis didn't live very long. She had a massive heart attack
Oh,
and died in 1961, and she was still in her 40s when it happened. She was in her, I think, late 40s, early 50s when she passed away. Yeah, very, very sudden and very sad, especially for somebody as talented as she was. One other thing about Hold That Ghost, it has a musical sequence at the beginning with Ted Lewis, and the Andrews sisters are in it too.
wow.
And it's essentially padding. It's there to stretch the movie out a little bit, but it also kind of lightens things up at the very beginning as well. And one of my go-tos is Halloween. Really, to Hold That Ghost. I think it's brilliant. Now, the best known comedy horror film with Abbott and Costello is Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Svengoolie shows it probably 3 or 4 times a year, and almost always during the Halloween season. It's so well done, and it's the last big picture that Bela Lugosi was ever in. It's the last one with any kind of a budget. Um, he still looks he's still pretty vital and he can still get around pretty well. Still looks good, in the drag. Glenn Strange is the Frankenstein monster in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, and he had taken over the reins from Boris Karloff and at times Lon Chaney. He was a very tall, kind of gaunt looking man. And the Frankenstein makeup worked, I thought, really well, with his face. And when we see the kind of the classic Universal Frankenstein, face, especially at Halloween when they're releasing masks and things like that, it's the Glenn Strange Frankenstein that we usually see. That'll be changing pretty soon, though, because Universal has sort of recast all of its monsters for the inevitable public domain onslaught that's heading their way. We only have what 2 or 3 more years until Dracula and Frankenstein, the 1931 versions, are public domain.
So public domain already, I believe. The books that a lot of the Universal monsters are based on are in the public domain already, I believe.
They are, but the films are not yet.
Right.
We still have to wait a little while on the films. I think we're up to 1929 now, meaning that everything made in 1929 and before that is public domain. Unfortunately, a lot of it doesn't exist anymore, sadly. So it won't be too much longer before the Universal monsters flip over. But they've also recast their images. Epic Universe is the new Universal Studios park. It's opening in Florida, in Orlando, I should say, in next month, in just a few weeks in May. The grand opening is in May. They've already had the park open for influencers and such, and it's sort of a pre-opening, preview for a lot of people. And I've seen some what they weren't supposed to shoot it, but I've seen some point of view footage from a couple of the rides, and I was a little disappointed in what I saw from Monsters Unleashed, which is the big Universal monster attraction at the new park. Now that said, it might not have been shot very well, and they have redone the way the monsters look. It is a new vision for all of that. Part of that might have been me as well, but that's why Universal has done that. They want to, since they're going to lose their old copyright on their old monsters, they decided to tweak them so they got another copyright on the visage.
Yeah, that's a shame. I know we talked about this before. There were like a couple of horror Winnie the Pooh movies and the
Oh
Banana
yeah.
and Popeye. There's two horror Popeye movies coming out very, very soon.
And somebody did something with Steamboat Willie too,
Yes,
and I
I heard
can't
that.
remember what
I heard that.
that was, but it's also the same. That's also the reason why Disney has redone Mickey and Minnie Mouse and some of the other characters, because those are all going to be public domain here in a little while too. So I don't really mind doing that so much. I mean, I understand that they want to, wring every penny that they can out of these properties. They certainly don't have anything new going on, so that's a
Well,
bad
they have
thing.
the Marvel and the Star Wars stuff. Star Wars I stopped watching, even though I was a big Star Wars fan once upon a time. Marvel, I'm still following their Marvel universe, where the
What
Marvel
has happened to Star Wars? It just seems to have gone away. I mean, I haven't heard anything about the.
they're
I mean,
still
the
doing shows and planning movies. We stopped watching, and the thing is, we both like the character Ahsoka, but we didn't watch the Ahsoka television series, and we haven't
hmm.
watched anything subsequently from there. I just lost interest in it. It wasn't engaging me anymore. It wasn't investing my interest or my feelings into it. Marvel still does that, and I'm a lot more positive about Marvel than most people who make videos because they've been tearing Marvel apart now for years.
Well, uh, Americans seem to love to have something to hate.
Mm,
So
it's very true.
I don't understand it at all. I just don't get it. I watch a lot of YouTube, and I think YouTube's partly to blame for all this, quite honestly, because in order to get your videos seen more often, you sort of have to sensationalize them.
Right.
It has to be the worst, or somebody has to have been wronged, or it's crazy. I don't,
Well,
and
it's
I
crazy,
find,
political things too, and it's
oh, yeah.
the same headlines all the time. So I stopped watching a lot of that too because it's like somebody got owned or served, and
Mhm.
yeah, I just want my world a little bit so I can navigate through it a little bit better. But
Well,
it's like clickbaity. Everything's clickbaity, and
yes, exactly. I agree with that. We were watching a couple of, well, a few automotive vloggers because we were in the market for a truck um, over the winter months. And I won't mention them by name, but there's a father and son automotive, vlogging outfit. And I like them. I like to watch their content, but they've been saying the same things about the automotive market for months, and half of it has not come true.
right, right. I've noticed that with the automotive market too. A lot of the things that they were saying, a lot of things that a lot of people were saying happened.
No, and as a matter of fact, the opposite has happened.
Right.
So, and you don't have any ethos then. If you keep crying wolf and nothing happens, but
Well,
they're all still getting lots of numbers of hits, so people are still watching it.
so
So.
and I like the Eternals movie, the Marvel Eternals movie. Did it portray the Eternals the way I would have liked as a long many year Eternals fan? No, it didn't. It was somebody else's creative vision. But I enjoyed the movie. I never thought they'd make one with the Eternals, so I'm grateful that that movie existed. And it made money too for Marvel, but people
Oh, good.
still proceed to rip it apart every chance they get. And people who said nice things about it when it came out have now joined the it was a horrible movie bandwagon.
Well, I think that's what happened to Snow White, quite honestly. Um, the most recent iteration of Snow White that came out, what, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, with Rachel Zegler.
Mhm.
There have been all kinds of accusations from the left and the right as to why this movie uh, failed. Essentially, I don't know that it really even did fail because it made quite a bit of money, but it also cost them quite a bit of money to make it. I think ultimately, the big controversy in it is that Snow White is no longer, waiting to be rescued by a prince, and she's, ready to go out there and do it for herself. Now, I have not seen this iteration of Snow White.
I haven't
Um,
seen it either.
the Rotten Tomatoes audience score in it's pretty strong, so it must be pretty well made. Um, it's gotten a lot of hate though because people were saying that it's woke Snow White and all that crap.
I don't know
No,
I don't know what that means. I've tried to understand that. Is that as opposed to sleeping? You're either woke or you're asleep. And
well, ironically, yeah.
does it sleep
Yeah,
then?
it does.
Okay.
um, I well, that's not a problem, not an issue that I can solve, unfortunately.
Neither can I, so we'll just move past it. But many things that are happening in this world now, maybe because I'm an archaic ancient soul, are very puzzling to me. I can't figure them out at all.
I haven't understood anything that's happened in the last 10 years. I
So we're in the same boat.
good. I'm glad it's not just me. Um, so going back to more horror comedy films, I cut my teeth on these as a child. Uh, a comedy of terrors, I think is worth watching. It's the AIP version from 1964 with Peter Lorre, who does such a good job in the film, and Boris Karloff, who sort of spoofs himself in it, which I think is awesome. The Abominable Dr. Fives is
Yes.
really good example of now that one's tricky. I would say that's more horror than comedy because the murders in it are pretty graphic, and interestingly done. But it's tongue in cheek at the same time. So that one's kind of hard to pin down. In some ways, it's the perfect horror comedy, I think. And that's a movie that I've loved my whole life. I loved it when I saw it at the drive-in when I was a kid, and I still love it. And I still pull it out probably twice a year to watch the DVD version that I've got of it. Beware the Blob, which was the sort of the unofficial sequel to the Blob, which came out in 1972. Has an interesting cast, and I first saw this, I think, on Chiller Theater when I was in high school. The cast includes Carol Lindley, Cindy Williams, Robert Walker Jr., Marlene Clark, Jeffrey Cambridge, Gwen Guilford, who is Chris Pine's mother, is in it. And it was directed by Larry Hagman. It is not the horror film that The Blob is. It's more tongue in cheek, especially the way the film ends. And it's a fun one to see. If for no other reason than the cast is just peppered with people who went on to do bigger and better things. Or well, a couple of them were actually sliding down. Some of them are going up, like Cindy Williams.
Well, we have a big respect for horror comedy, like even in television, with the Addams Family, we had the Munsters, all the different cinematic and television incarnations. And we have Bruce Campbell with The Evil Dead. That was kind of like
Yeah.
horror comedy. He was on my show, by the way, when I had a cable TV show. Bruce Campbell was one of the guests.
Wow.
It bugged him out, I think.
Um, and going back to the comedy horror, and I've talked about this movie before, but it's one of my favorites. Student Bodies, I think it's in some ways kind of the perfect comedy horror film. It parodies the old slasher films from the '70s so well. And there again, done on a shoestring budget, shot in Texas, shot in Dallas for not very much money, and with a lot of local actors, but well done. If you can find a copy of it online to stream, or if you have your own DVD of it, watch it, because I think it's awesome. It's so much fun. Killer Clowns from Outer Space is yet another
Yes.
comedy horror film, and it's got some. Uh, the first time when it came out back in the '80s, I thought, oh God, this is low camp. This is this is not anything I wanted to watch. So I didn't watch Killer Clowns from Outer Space in the theater. I did see it when it was released to video cassette or videotape about a year or so afterward, and I loved it. And I still I love it to this day. I probably should have gone to see it in the theater, but I thought, oh, this is lowbrow, and
That's
it's
what I
not.
thought.
It's got some pretty horrific things in it too. The clowns themselves, I think, are really well done, and they're creepy and disgusting looking in it.
I've seen clowns come out of UFOs, if I remember correctly. We did a
Yes.
show on
Hmm.
that. So, killer clown, I don't know if they're killer clowns, but scary clowns from outer space are appearing in our realities. Very
Right.
prophetic.
And it stars Grant Kramer, who had a bit of a career in the '80s as a kind of a male lead. His mother is Terry Moore, who was in Mighty Joe Young, Come Back Little Sheba. And Terry Moore is actually still with us. She will be, I believe, 96 this year, if she hasn't already gotten. And he Grant Kramer became a director, and I think he's done a lot of TV and some films over the course of his career. And Royal Dano is in it. John Vernon is in it as well. Those are two character actors who were probably both in 200 films apiece. But a lot of fun to watch. Now, one that I'd kind of forgotten about until I was trying to jot down some ideas for tonight's podcast was Frankenhooker.
Yes, I remember Franken. And Franken Weenie, was it the dog?
Yeah, there was Frankenweenie.
Yeah.
Frankenhooker, I hadn't heard of that until it was released to video cassette. And one of the video stores that we used to go to back then, and that film came out in 1990, so this is 35 years ago.
Wow.
One of the video stores that we went to had a full size cutout of Frankenhooker. And it was in cardboard. And if you pushed a button, she would say one a day. And I'm sure I had. I would love to have that thing. I probably very few left in existence. I'm sure they all got thrown out. The woman who portrays Frankenhooker is Patty Mullen, who was I think a penthouse. Were they what were they called? Playmates or a penthouse girl? Or I don't know what I don't know how you refer to.
I don't know either. But
She wasn't in Playboy. She was in Penthouse.
yeah, Playboys with Playmates. I don't know what the ones in other magazines were called.
Yeah, I don't know what you would call it. Penthouse Pet, maybe. Maybe that's what they were called. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it was alliterative. I think there were two P's. Louise Lasser is in Frank, which I had forgotten. From Mary Hartman. Mary Hartman.
Mary Hartman, yes.
Kind of an odd role for her because she always did kind of sardonic comedy really well, and it was just odd to see her in Frankenhooker, but it is a comedy, so.
Yeah, I have that
So
somewhere. I think I have a deluxe edition of it in some box.
I don't know that I don't know if we have a copy of that. I don't think we have a DVD copy of it. If we do, it would have been one that Greg made, I would imagine, but I don't think we have a copy of it. One that I do have a bought DVD copy of is Serial Mom.
Remember that? Yeah.
Well, and I understand that John Waters hasn't made a movie, I think since A Dirty Shame back in about 20 years ago. But I had read somewhere that he was working on a new film. I don't know where that is in terms of production. Um, he talks a lot about how it's more difficult than ever to make a film. He was able to make films that is on a shoestring budget back in the 60s and 70s. And I think as things went along, it got harder and harder for him to put together financing to actually make something without the people who were financing it getting in the way, which I think happens a lot, unfortunately. Serial Mom, though, I thought was a lot of fun. I went to see it in the theater twice. I liked it so much the first time that I went back about a week later and saw it. It's kind of hard for me to believe that Kathleen Turner, signed on for it. She's great actress, great serious actress, but she's fantastic at this. She does psychotic really well, I guess is for lack of a better word. And it's got a good cast. Sam Waterston's in it, Matthew Lillard in one of his earlier roles, and Ricky Lake, who was in Hairspray.
Hairspray, yes. And became a talk show host after that. A very successful one for many years.
She did. Mhm.
Yes.
Psycho Beach Party is, I think, another fun movie that gets overlooked too often. It's made by it was actually written by Charles Bush, who is a very famous drag queen. And Charles has, interestingly, most drag queens do not keep their male names, and Charles Bush kept his. And I think that's a very interesting look at drag. Now, when he does drag in his films, and he's only made a few, unfortunately, he does them as straight up women's roles. There's no nudge, nudge, wink, wink. I mean, he is portraying a woman in this role. And I kind of like that because he's not really camping it up or anything like that. He's just trying to do something with the character, and it's his character because he wrote it. But it's kind of a fun movie, and it's got some elements of whatever happened to Baby Jane in it. Some elements of Gidget as well. It's an interesting movie in that it's got about 10 different films all compressed, into one. And it's a lot of fun too. If you haven't seen Flacco Beach Party, give that one a shot. Shaun of the Dead is another one that I've
Great
probably seen that
movie.
movie 20 times.
Yeah, so have I.
I think it's extremely well done. Simon Pegg and Nick Frost make a really good comedy team. I think they don't. It, it is sort of a, I don't want to say Abbott Costello, but because the characters are, nothing alike. You Lou Costello's character in most of his movies is, bordering on simpleton, and Nick Frost in the movies he's made with Simon Pegg is usually the brighter of the two in some way, shape, or form, you know. Um, and Shaun of the Dead, though, is zombie movies, seem to, for whatever reason, lend themselves to comedy horror or horror comedy, because a lot of zombie movies are also comedies, and vice versa. Um, of the new films that I've seen lately, one that I forgot to mention was Hard Eyes. Um, and that's a comedy horror film too. And there again, it leans more into the horror, but it's got some pretty funny elements in it, and they're woven in pretty well, throughout the film. And it stars Mason Gooding, who is Cuba Gooding Jr.'s son, and Olivia Holt, and very well done. It's a fun one, and if it comes around on the streaming services, take a look at Hard Eyes. It's a love story too, so there's a little something for everybody, I suppose. Hmm.
Is it a new movie? A relatively new
Oh,
movie?
it came out. I want to say probably 3 or 4 months ago.
Oh, so yeah, so okay, so it's relatively new.
Hmm. And it's called Heart Eyes because of the emoji. The some of the emojis that you can pick have hearts, as eyes, and I don't want to give any more of it away than that. But that's why it's called.
Some of the movies you've spoken about in the past were inadvertently like horror comedies. Like I remember there's one movie where Rosie Greer and somebody else share a body, and they're like punching each other, and
It's Ray Milland.
that was funny.
Hmm.
I don't
It
think
is. It is a funny movie. The title escapes me. It'll come to me in a minute, though. It was early '70s.
yes.
Gosh, it's not the thing with two heads.
I don't remember the movie either, but whenever I get the image of it, I laugh because it was like truly funny.
It is the thing with two heads.
Is it okay?
It is. Okay, I had to look it up. But it's Ray Milland, Rosie Greer, Chelsea Brown, Don Marshall, and Roger Perry. Uh, I I saw that as a child, and I'm not sure if I saw it in theater or, well, gosh, I would had to have because we didn't have. I'm going to say I saw that in the theater as a kid. Um,
I saw it in the RKO Coliseum, which is near where Ron Carson and I grew up. You know, my cousin. So
mhm.
saw it in the RKO. I remember the seating and watching it like a little bit to the side, to the left of the screen.
It's a fun movie. Rosie Greer is still with us, which I think is amazing.
I'm surprised. That is amazing.
Well, some people just have the sort of the gift. I, I'm kind of at a loss to explain it. Some people exist way into their 90s, and some people who I thought would live forever, don't really seem to live
Oh,
very long, unfortunately.
wow. There are so many of these films, and they're always coming out with new ones. And again, we have Elvira and Svengoolie and Count Floyd and other horror hosts who add their own brand of comedy to movies that are inadvertently funny a lot of times.
Well, back in the early Universal horror films, there was usually a character who was there for comic relief, so that the films wouldn't seem too scary. Um, There's a there's a female character actress who's in Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein, who is solely there to lighten things up. And she's barely two dimensional. I mean, she's screaming and throwing her hands up and running away. But she's there, I guess to lighten up the more horrific elements of Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. Two of my two big favorites of mine.
Now I'd like to see the casting, if there's films behind the scenes, films of casting for that character.
Yeah, I don't know if they purposefully picked her because well, they must have, because
And that what you said makes sense.
she's good at that in that role. She's grating and annoying, but that was the point that she was supposed to be. So the first time I saw those movies, I was like, why did they do this? You know what? Get this woman out of here. And now I kind of look forward to seeing her scenes, because she's not in that many of them. And I cannot think of that woman's name to save my life, but somewhere in the middle of IMDb's database.
I forgot to mention Zachary. He was
The Cool Ghoul, yeah.
for many years for horror, and he too lent his own brand of comedy to the programs he was showing on the show.
I've got a signed poster
Do you? That's awesome.
from him. It's in my bedroom, framed, and I was so glad to get it because he lived to be almost 100.
Wow.
There was a point at which I thought, well, maybe is he really undead? And he looked the same too. In the 50s, he looked the same as he did, right before he died. He didn't really change a whole lot. He was still tall, thin, and gaunt. The makeup, I think he probably needed less of it as the years went by, because he got older and older. But the look didn't really change. I'm amazed at people who can do that. Cassandra Peterson, Elvira,
Yes.
she's early 70s now. She's 73, 74 years old. And I know there's a lot of drag to Elvira. There's the wig and then the boobs and the tight dress, but she can still get away with it. She's still pretty good.
Yes, she is. That's a perfect place to end our conversation. I looked at the clock and it's like, oh, wow, we're in our last minute. Uh, so thank you so much for everything. It's a pleasure talking to you. It was great seeing you. My programming has been kind of erratic since I'm no longer on Facebook, and it's much harder to communicate. So I'm in the process of fixing that. But thank you so much for the introductions to things I haven't seen, and to the reintroduction of things I've seen and cherished in the past. How can people enter the world of Brian's Drive-In Theater? And how can
Well,
they
you can always visit me online at briansdrivein-theater.com. I am in the site every day, making changes and additions. There's a movie of the day every day as well. And fortunately, there's a lot of public domain content for me to share with everybody else. If you want to interact with me on social media, I'm still just on Facebook. I don't know if that's going to change or not here in the near future. But visit me on Facebook. Just go to the search bar and type in Brian's Drive-In Theater, and I should pop up.
I'm currently on Mastodon, but nobody else seems to be on Mastodon.
Not on Mastodon.
Thank you again, Brian. Say hi to Greg, and have a very wonderful rest of the week. And I will talk to you very soon.
All right. Thank you so much. Take care.
You well, you too.